What if everything you know about pain is wrong? I'm Hillary Topper, and this is Hillary Topper on Air, the Endurance Sports Edition. Today, I have the great pleasure of speaking with two amazing guests, Ryan Whited and Matt Fitzgerald, co-authors of the groundbreaking book, Pain and Performance, the revolutionary new way to use training as treatment for pain and injury. Ryan and Matt, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much,
Thanks
Hillary.
so much.
So, can you each tell me a little bit about yourselves? I'll start with you, Ryan. And then I would love to hear how the two of you came together.
Sure. I am a son of a professional athlete. Was also myself a sponsored athlete for about 20 years. And I happen to find myself in a golden era of a couple different times in athletic, like climbing eras. So I've been entrenched basically in elite athletics for about 30 years. My wife is an athlete also. It's kind of how we've lived.
Okay, and Matt?
Yes, I'm a friend of the show. I've been on before. Lifelong runner and writer. I've written a lot of books about running and other endurance sports. And I have a business called 80/20 Endurance, which provides educational and training resources for athletes and coaches. And I now have a new business here in Flagstaff, Arizona called Dream Run Camp, which is like a fantasy retreat for adult runners where you can come whenever you want, stay as long as you want within limits, and transform your running.
Awesome. All right, so how did the two of you meet?
Matt attended a talk that I give. I should have mentioned prior to also in my introduction that we own a business in Flagstaff, Arizona that's a training center where we do a lot of work with folks that are outdoor athletes and otherwise. A lot of folks come to see us for nagging injuries and whatnot. So I've been giving a talk at our business, Paragon Athletics, for a few years called Pain and Performance. And that's the title of my talk. And Matt happened to be there one night that I was giving that talk. He was at Rob Carr's run camp. And that was how we got together.
Okay. So let's talk about the new book. The tagline is really captivating. What if everything you know about pain is wrong? And we were talking a little bit about this, Ryan and I, before Matt, you jumped on. Can you give our listeners a glimpse into the new perspective? I mean, I guess it's not so new that you bring to the table.
Yes, it's kind of assumed in our culture, and it's taught in our culture that pain is one-to-one of damage to pain equivalents, and that's just not how pain works at all. There are so many moving parts to pain that we haven't given credit to in our system of care, and it's been very costly to a lot of people, in my humble opinion.
Before Matt came on, we were Ryan and I were talking about how so many doctors say, you know, your knee is bone on bone and you can't run anymore. I can't tell you how many people I've heard it myself, and I've heard it from so many of the runners that I run with. Can you talk a little bit about that? And also about the inspiration behind developing this whole method. I know you had it was about your dad. Can you kind of talk a little bit about that as well?
Sure. It's kind of how physicians are taught to think about pain. So, and even PTs, they're just not educated, ironically enough, about pain. They're educated a ton in, pathology and physiology and things of that sort. But pain is its own thing. It's not. Um, they're only taught to look at it from, this is what's wrong and it's causing your pain, and it's just not how it works. So I think how I was brought up gave me kind of built out my relationship to pain. But I adopted, as an athlete, I started believing, that some of my pain experiences were, as you've read, if you've read the book, um, because of these, things that were wrong with me, these dysfunctions, which really cost me a bit as an athlete. It set me back quite a bit. So after learning more and more about pain, it just became a passion of mine to share with other athletes that this isn't how this works. So that's the brief story.
Matt, when you went to see Ryan's talk, were you in, I know that you're dealing with long-term COVID, but were
Yeah.
you in pain with something that, kind of propelled you to go there to listen to the talk?
I mean, I was always in pain, just like I was always hungry. Yeah, you could ask
Except you
me.
don't gain weight and I do.
Yeah, I definitely had my share of experience with pain, just being limited by it, in my training. And yes, I was dealing with a limiter at that time. I had never heard of Ryan before I went to Paragon to hear that talk. It just, everyone who was attending Rob Crar's camp, that was just part of the camp, and I did not go there expecting my mind to be blown. But that whole new paradigm of just understanding pain and injury, it was like the first thing that made sense of my own experience, where I had just kind of learned over a period of years that the best way to work through injuries or pain experiences that were limiting my training were to figure it out on my own, just to apply some, because it's like I went to doctors and they just couldn't help me not for my bigger issues. They tried, but I got past all of them, and they were all different parts of my body, had different names applied to them. But in each case, the solution was the same thing as the cause. My feeling was that it was caused by training really hard. And they were all fixed by training really smart, just finding ways to be persistent, but also, adaptive or adaptable, and just working around and working through the issues. And, I'd accumulated enough experience where it was clearly true for me, if not for everyone. And what the science that Ryan presented indicated was that I'm not a freak. I'm not weird, that this is kind of how it is. Every now and then you need a doctor for something, but for the most part, the most efficient and effective way to overcome, a pain experience or an injury is on your own, maybe with the help of a coach or a trainer, but not necessarily a medical clinician.
Yeah, I seem to think that what they do is they try to give you pills to help you subside the pain, but it doesn't actually take care of the pain.
Mhm.
So I'm not really sure what that does, right?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah, a
makes
lot of
a lot
times
of money for pharmaceutical companies.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
they'll assign a pathology, to you, so until you're sick. So yeah, the big word for that is iatrogenic. So where you're creating patients basically.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. So
Mhm.
Ryan, when you talk about this in your book about your dad, that he was a professional horse jockey. Um, how has your approach evolved through your experience and shaped the insights into your book?
I think I've kind of, well, I was brought up dealing with injury constantly, and we just adjusted our lives around those experiences, but they never stopped our lives. We just moved with it and around it, and we learned how to do that. It's it, even the horses oftentimes, would be going through an injury because they are athletes, and then we would have to adjust things around their training. We had a place where we would swim them, so if they came back and they were a little lame on one leg, then they would stay in training, but they would go and swim rather than just stop training. We had workarounds all the time, and I just learned that through our lives. It was day to day for us.
Yeah. So I guess that spurred your passion for it, in terms of just being there, experiencing your dad and experience pain within yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Yeah, yeah, it's true. As athletes, full well that pain is just going to be a part of our process. It's going to be a part of our seasons. Yeah, and so to think that it just can't be present at all in order for us to be labeled as healthy is just a false dichotomy. It's not a good way to think about your health.
Yeah, totally. Matt, in terms of, can you give a brief outline about the key benefits athletes can expect by adopting
Hmm.
this training as treatment method?
Yeah, I mean, I'll try to just describe the method itself in a nutshell. So first and foremost, it's the idea that when you're experiencing pain as an athlete, you basically try to keep doing what you've been doing, assuming you've been training in a smart way. So only change your training as much as you have to. Now, sometimes you have to change it. So you still try to keep moving, and then just adapt in ways. So like if you're a runner and maybe you can't run fast for a while because of Achilles thing, but you can still run slow. Or maybe you need to switch to cross training, like get on the elliptical trainer instead of running for a while. And in the meantime, in the gym, you could usually what's kind of mind bending about the science of pain is that the most effective tool for reducing the pain and increasing function is using the part that hurt specifically. So if it's your knee, you might go to the gym and think, all right, well, usually I do squats, but right now squats are very painful. So you find different ways. You don't avoid using the knee unless you absolutely have to, but you just sort of like dial back and try stuff, and kind of like, it's like Ryan likes to say, it's like cookery. You just come up with a little recipe that works, and then you progress. So you find exercises where the pain is tolerable, and then when you've made some progress with those exercises, maybe you try some new exercises that are a little more challenging. And at the same time, there's the whole, this approach is based on what's known as the biopsychosocial model of pain. And so, I described the exercise as like the bio part, but actually it's not just the bio part, because when you're doing that, you're also like building self-efficacy. You can be desensitizing the area, and lowering, changing expectations. And because expectations with pain tend to be self-fulfilling, but also at the same time, just like sort of like understanding what pain and it is and isn't, understanding that you're probably not really injured in any meaningful way, that you're not making it worse by inducing tolerable levels of discomfort. So that has that's very confidence building too, and it takes your anxiety level down, your stress level down. Like, this is just one of those things. Maybe with a little coaching help, I can make my way through this. And so, the bottom line benefits is like, if you practice sort of like, the bio, psycho, and social dimensions of this approach, you'll probably be, you'll have fewer and less severe pain experiences. You'll return to full training more quickly. And then, those are sort of like the bottom line best, the slightly inaccurate way to encapsulate it is you'll be injured less.
Yeah.
But then on top of that, you also, for me, I had an injury that occurred actually right after Ryan and I started working on the book together. And one thing I noticed and I got to do it, what I'd been doing on my own up to that point, I got to do like with Ryan's direct input. And one thing I noticed about the experience was just how, so often the worst part of being injured or having a pain experience is the psychological part. I'll ask athletes all the time, like, does it hurt now? And they're like, well, no, I'm just sitting talking to you. I'm like, exactly. So, but does it bother you now? And they'll be, yeah, it bothers me now. So it's like, that's actually the biggest part of it. Like, usually it doesn't hurt most of the time, unless you're doing very specific things with it, but it bothers you all the time. But like when you sort of like, if you drink the Kool-Aid of the training as treatment method, and then you practice it and you see that it works, those periods when you are limited by pain are just a lot less stressful. You have this kind of like this, I got this mentality. Like, I know it's going to be a few days, a few weeks or whatever, but I know what to do. I know it's finite, and it just changes that whole dimension of your experience of being an athlete in a positive way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it de-threatens it a bit. I worked with somebody over the holidays that I've been working with for about a year now. He was in therapy for a little over 2 years, and really his biography had been suspended in most regards. He's a martial artist. So we started working together, and everything changed so radically for him. He's a psychologist, incidentally. So everything changed so radically for him over that year that he really was able to like start doing martial arts again. He was playing with his kids again. He didn't feel like he was damaging things when he did have pain. He knew, this is just a pain experience. It's not representative of damage in my tissue. So, but over the holidays, his relationship with his family can add strain to his life, and he was having to double down on some other things too at work. And so he had his first flare up since we've been working together, and he had been in therapy for 2 years, and it really hadn't helped at all. So his first significant flare up he had, and he said he was standing in the kitchen, he wasn't deadlifting or doing anything, what people associate those kinds of things with, oh, I hurt myself. He was standing in the kitchen cooking, and all of a sudden just felt pain in his back and went, dear God, that's what I felt initially. And he said that he had instant panic for a second and then thought, this is okay. Even though it was a profound pain experience. He got down on the floor, he said he just did some self-talk and gently started to move through it. He said he had a really terrible 2 days. But in 2 days, it was funny because he was standing there talking to me, doing all these kicks and everything, and I was going, "Oh my gosh!" But in 2 days, he was kind of back to square one. He was feeling good again. It was still tender, but he it just had taken the fear that he had associated with that experience down so much that he could get back there more quickly. So, which it was in my mind, it was such a win story. I thought that's exactly what I'm hoping for. So yeah, instead of 2 years of suspended living, not playing with kids, not being an athlete, he could kind of recontextualize the experience and get back so much more quickly.
So do you think a lot of it, even though you feel it, but a lot of it could be up here in your head as opposed to like maybe you're just escalating it in your head. Oh my God, I have a torn meniscus. I can't do anything. Or, oh my
Mhm.
God, I'm bone on bone. I can't run anymore.
Yeah, it's with so pain science is being discussed more and more publicly, and I think a lot of people will say a lot of this is in your head, but that's as as flawed as saying it's all in your body too. You know what I mean? It's never just one of those. It's all of those. So yes, it's all in your head. It's all in your body. It's all in you, all the time.
So the book caters to a wide audience, right? From elite to recreational fitness enthusiasts. Are the principles applicable across different sports and activity levels?
Yes. Yeah. If you're a living, breathing human, uh, these apply to you. These ideas apply to you. So on any level, one of the ladies I work with, she's 83, and I was working with her this morning, and she said somebody asked her, she was coming to train, and they asked what she was training for, uh, and she said, "Well, I'm training for life." So she actually told me this morning. She said, "I'm really starting to get concerned that if I continue coming here, I'm going to live to be 100." So yes,
Really
it's for
well.
everybody. She was doing pull-ups when we were talking about it. So
How old is she?
83.
Wow, that's awesome. She's my hero.
Yeah.
Can you just, briefly, we're almost out of time, but I would love you to just briefly talk us through some of the key principles ab- about your method. I don't know if we could do that quickly, but there's any like one or two points that you'd like to share.
If yeah, if there were some critical points for people to leave with, it would be prioritize your health in your life rather than the absence of pain in your life. Pain does not always equal damage, as we've said. And your health is much more important. And a lot of times, if you do those two things, pain will kind of go to the background. It will kind of take its place in your life if it's less priority. We've kind of given it the front seat, so to speak, um, by making its absence priority.
And thank you. That's great. And lastly, thank you both for being on the show today. Um, could you just tell people how they can get in touch with you and purchase a copy of your book?
Mm-hmm. It's available at any bookseller, including Amazon. But if you have a local bookstore, it's available there too. If you want to reach out to me, you can go to our website, Paragon Athletics, and we work virtually quite a lot, and even before COVID, at least half of the people that I work with are virtual, because most of what we do is just exercise and conversation. We're not limited by virtual work. Um, and that's the best way to get in touch with us.
Yep, and you can find me at mattfitzgerald.org. And if you want to learn more about 80/20 Endurance, that's 80/20endurance.com, and Dream Run Camp, dreamruncamp.com.
There's also, you can also purchase 80/20 training plans on
Yep,
training, right?
that's right.
All right. Well, thank you both for being on the show. I'd also like to thank our sponsor, Play Try, Swim Bike Run, a retail bike shop and multi-sport specialist. For more information, visit playtry.com/store. I'd also like to thank you, our listeners, for tuning in. If you want more information on this show or any other show, visit our website, hillarytopper.com, or you can find us on Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Alexa. You name it, we're out there. Have a great week, and we'll see you next time.